Welcome to the After Chat. I'm Michael,
I'm Madison.
and today we are talking about how to experience God personally.
Yeah,
Are you ready?
I sure am.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the After Chat. Real questions. Real talk. Real life.
If you were to be banned from the local library, now as a former librarian,
Yeah.
what would be the reason?
Okay, first of all, technically speaking, I'm not a former librarian because you have to have a master's of library sciences to be referred to as a librarian.
Shut up.
Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No
like
idea.
not a librarian unless you have that degree.
Okay,
but
don't want to know stolen valor.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. I was a circulation assistant for a while and then I became an office manager. So
Okay.
I climbed the ladder despite the lack of degree. What was the question?
if you were to be banned from the library,
Right.
what would the reason be?
Okay, so it would be for mistreating books because I don't do this to library books, to be fair, because taxpayers' money and everything.
Yeah.
Gotta be polite and conscientious.
Mhm.
But to my books, especially paperbacks, like I will straight up like take the cover and like fold it around behind and
yes.
and I'll dog ear pages. I'll write with pens and highlighters and like tear it up. I heavily mistreat books, but it's my way of loving them.
Yeah. See, I don't do that to my books. Like I have probably an insane amount of bookmarks, like of all kinds, like leather ones, like the lenticular ones where you can like turn them and you'll see like an eagle flying or a tiger
Ooh,
roaring.
is that what that's called?
Yeah.
Is lenticular?
Now I'm doubting, but
I
I'm
just
almost
didn't-
100% positive.
I mean, I believe you. You said it with confidence.
Yes.
Wow, I had no idea there was a word for. I thought it was like, I don't know what I thought it was, like holographic or something, maybe.
Yep. That's it.
Lenticular.
Lenticular. And so like at Books A Million, they have them up there. It's a store that my girls and I go to on a semi-regular basis.
Mhm.
And like, so they have a little spinny thing that has all sorts of them on there. And so
Nice.
I am a sucker for every time I go getting a new one. So I have quite the collection of the Books A Million bookmarks.
I love it.
So I grimace at the thought of doing all of those things. But so I don't go to the library very often, but whenever I did, it was primarily for audiobooks to listen to in the car.
Yeah, okay.
And they have quite the collection of them at the Powhatan Library here. And so, I mean, where like to download an audiobook or to get it on Audible, like it would be very expensive, but you can just go in there and get like the Game of Thrones ones or like the 27-hour Stephen King books. Like all of those are in there. So it would probably be.
Are you doing when you check out, are you doing e-audiobooks or like the CDs?
The CDs.
Okay, because they have a lot online too. Just saying.
So, that I didn't even know.
I got you off track though. Yeah.
But, now I do it on
You
Spotify.
can, like-
so like I do, and you can listen to them all on there.
You like unlimited number of books?
Yeah.
Oh,
So like if you have a Spotify premium account,
yeah.
you can just do like the 10.99 or whatever it is, and you can listen to like any of the audiobooks that they have in their collection. So
Nice.
that's how I do it now.
I don't have access to that because I am on my parents' family plan still. So because I don't pay for it, they're the ones that I think they would get access to it, but not like the offshoot accounts of the family plan. So, anyways.
But no, I very much like that, and so it would probably be for like harassing people that had books that I wanted,
Mm.
like, and they hadn't turned them back in yet.
You like find their library card number and you're doing
No-
like detective work
Well,
figuring out who it
Costanza
is.
did that on a Seinfeld episode for the movie he wanted to watch, and
Yep.
then he like went to their house and asked to watch the movie so he could cheat on a book club. Like, so
Oh my
no,
gosh.
it would have been for some reason related to all of that.
You know, we like in the world of libraries, people's like their records of like what they checked out super heavily protected.
I bet. Well,
Like-
that was a plot point in the movie Seven back in the day.
Like there is
How they caught Kevin Spacey.
if someone like walked in and they were like, "This is who I am. I need to know what books I have out because I lost them." I wouldn't have been allowed to tell them what books were on their account unless they
Really?
showed me an ID.
Really?
Yeah, or also the library card.
Yeah.
Like, that's just as good as the ID. But like for me to tell you anything about it, then I need proof that you are who you say you are, or you have the card that matches the account. Like super intense. Yeah,
There we go.
I love it.
You never know what you're going to learn here on the After Chat.
Yeah, that's true.
So this one, if you could remove one color, and as a colorblind person, I wouldn't really know, like what I describe something as, like other people disagree with. But if you could remove one color in the whole world, what would it be?
Probably. I mean, for sure, anything neon. I don't love bright colors. I know they're like functional for a purpose, but I just don't. I don't like them. I guess like neon yellow. It's like the
Okay.
brightest option.
Blues and purples, because I can't tell them apart half the time anyway. And so what difference does it make at that point?
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, so we're going to be talking about experiencing God.
Yeah.
So where do you typically experience God?
I would say it's probably pretty evenly split between my bed, just because I sit on my bed to like usually listen to worship music, sing along by myself, or pray, read the Bible. Like that's the spot where I'm at for all of the above. And then also worship music, but like in the sense of congregational worship music. So
Yes.
it doesn't have to be PCC. It's been at other places before, other events, other like worship nights at other churches, just anywhere where people are gathering together and congregationally worshiping God. That's a pretty common way that I experience his presence.
Well, good, because I was getting ready to say bed myself. And so, because that's where, like, before I even get out of bed in the morning, like, I start praying. Like, whenever I first open my eyes, I turn off the alarm on my phone and I stay right where I am and start praying to God about like everything that I'm going to be having going on during the day. That's so like I always feel like really close to him in those first moments of the day. And the other one is definitely corporate worship.
Yeah.
Where just you're with everybody, you're with everybody at the church and everybody is singing. And there's something about, for me anyway, whenever I usually sit like in the front, like on Sunday mornings. But whenever I can hear everyone else in the space singing,
Yeah.
and we're all singing out the same praise to God, it just, you feel it. And I don't know any other way to say it than you feel it.
Yeah.
Like, and so I very much there.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome. I think I also probably have a little bit of like a common thread with outside spaces too. Like not like just any time I'm outside, but certain environments outside with particularly like a lot of trees and then some kind of water. Any kind of water will kind of put me into a space where I think I'm just more reverent, or like I'm maybe seeking God in spaces where I don't usually. So Yeah, I'll add that to the list.
So is it like where you're just sitting next to like a body of water and you're just outside? Like, do you have like a thought or like some sort
um,
of like revelation in those moments?
it's really just the being in nature will kind of help me center myself on feeling a little bit smaller, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
Like there's so much outside of me. I think it reminds me of God's bigness. And so what I would usually do in those spaces, when I'm intentionally um, sitting and using them to experience God's presence, would be to sit and meditate on either a piece of scripture or a breath prayer or something, and then I'll also watch branches like in the
Mm.
breeze, stuff like that. Something that's very like repetitive or um not mindless, but like more I guess really just some version of meditation, really.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's very meditative. Is that a word? I don't
It
think that's
is.
a word. It doesn't sound like a word.
In the
Anyways.
sense that you're using it, it works.
Yeah, that's usually what I'm doing in those spaces. If I'm like going on a hike or something, like I'm actually focused on not tripping and putting one
Moving
foot in front of
forward.
each other. It's not the view. It's really just the calm that comes with slowing down and remembering that I am so small and God is so big.
No, I can relate to that. So there's whenever we go out to Bear Creek Lake, like one of the things I do like to do is lie on my back and float with my ears under the water so I can't really hear anything.
Yeah.
But I'm just like looking up at the sky and watching the clouds move.
Yeah.
Like it's just and sometimes it'll just like hit me like, wow, like God made all of this here.
Yeah. It's
Or whenever went to the top of McAfee Knob. That's like my Facebook profile photo is like at the top of it. It's one of the most photographed places in Virginia, and you can just see forever. And it looks like God just put his hands down like that, and then just spread them out and just like folded up the earth. And just sitting up there, like at the top of that thing, was just like, holy smokes!
man.
Like God made this. So I haven't really thought about like that a whole lot, but no, like in those moments you do, especially if you're like talking to him on a regular basis and you're constantly seeking him, you do have those moments when you're outside where you're just like,
Yeah.
boom,
Yep.
and it's cool. So we're going to look at a couple different things here.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at like kind of like a broad scope of like how did people experience God in the Bible, just to
Yeah.
kind of give us some ideas of what's in the realm of possibility.
Yeah. I
Might
like
be
that.
the best way to phrase it. So the first one is something that a lot of people, a story that a lot of people have heard,
Yep.
whether they're inside the church or not. And this is the burning bush. And this is where he first talks to Moses. So this is Exodus 3, verses 2 through 5. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground.
Kind of wild.
Kind of wild. Like I love. What translation was this? Like
NIV.
Okay, I just love that. And so Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight. Why the bush does not burn up? Like,
That's also how I talk to myself.
Yeah.
I will go do this.
Why the bush does not. Like, I just love that. But so these are what's kind of like called divine appearances. Like
Yeah.
these are times where people saw something radically strange that God spoke to them through.
Yeah.
I personally have not had something like this.
Me neither.
But it's within the realm of possibility, I guess.
That's true. Yeah, I think we could also probably. I don't have the exact reference pulled up or scripture to read surrounding it, but I think we could also include the experience that he had where he faced the mountain and God
Yes.
passed behind him, and yeah, he didn't get to look. He was covering his eyes, but like that's a in my opinion, that's a divine appearance.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that had a physical effect on Moses as well.
Yeah, he was
Like
glowing.
his face glowed for a
Yeah,
spell.
so Moses definitely had some interesting run-ins with experiencing God's presence for sure.
And they were all unique specifically to him. Like this was in the biblical narrative.
Yep.
Like he was the last one to have this type
Yep.
of relationship with the Lord.
Which for that time frame, it was not necessarily just him that was experiencing
Yes.
that, because the people of Israel, they were also experiencing the presence of God in the form of a pillar of smoke and fire. So we can read in Exodus 13 verse 21. By day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. Like I would love to like see a picture of what
Yes.
that like. It's too bad cameras didn't exist back then, because man, that
No,
must have been
the selfies
crazy.
would have been cool.
Like how tall do you think it was?
Hundreds and hundreds of feet.
I mean,
Like easily.
do you think it was warm?
Yeah, I
Like
think
at
it
night?
would be.
I mean, it's fire. Like,
and it does get very cold at night.
yeah.
So I think
wonder
it
if
would
it
most
kept
definitely
warm.
have to be. The other one that we didn't mention here, we don't have the scripture for it, but the other one is like on Mount Sinai, where the glory and the thunder and the smoke and all the things came down.
Yeah.
Where God gave them the 10 Commandments when Moses went up and Joshua like stayed down at the bottom and
Yeah.
all the things. Like they definitely had unique experiences, but I think that would have been super cool to see just a massive pillar of smoke just cruising right along, like
Yeah.
showing you the way.
The pillar of fire, like for some reason, I have a little bit of an easier time picturing that one, because it's just fire. But like a pillar of like, for there to be like constraints to smoke
Yes.
is like it hurts my mind a little bit. Like, I don't know. I imagine it still did like fan, but it had to like be
It would have plumed
fairly
at the top.
Yeah, it would have still had to have been like fairly contained. I don't know.
Some of the other ways that people have experienced it is just kind of sense his presence. And you see a lot of these, especially reflected in the Psalms, where David, even though he was going through a lot of things, whenever Saul was chasing him during Absalom's rebellion, whenever he went and like hid out and acted crazy for a while, and he still maintained some sort of sense of God guiding him and being surrounding him. And Psalm 23:4, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And I mean, I'm sure you have some examples of this where things in life were a struggle and were difficult, but you were able to rely on your faith in him and still feel him around you, even if your circumstances weren't all that great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I think that's probably, I know we'll get more into it later, like particularly how we find ourselves commonly experiencing God's presence. But I would say like that particular quote from David, there's lots of other quotes from David in Psalms and from other authors in Psalms that I can relate with, but that one in particular, like I return to it regularly for a reason, because I know what that's like to feel that comfort that literally makes no sense at all.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really cool. Um, yeah, there's a few other examples that we have. Um, I think this next one I can also really relate to. It's still underneath the common like idea of sense of presence or guidance. This one kind of leans more into guidance,
Mm-hmm.
and the context is Elijah, who is a prophet, is getting direction from God. And so we can read in 1 Kings 19, verse 12. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still
Mm.
small voice. So it was when Elijah heard it that he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. Suddenly a voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?"
Mm.
So there's a lot on his shoulders, a lot like that he's navigating, but just the fact that it's that still small voice that kind of like kicks him into gear a little
Yes.
bit. And like I read it as when that still small voice showed up, that he went to engage.
Yes.
Like that was like it prompted him to engage with the presence of God and receive the guidance. That's how I read it, at
No,
least.
no, and it's counterintuitive to what most people are looking for and expect. Like
Yeah.
I love it, and some of them it's like, and after the earthquake happened, but God was not in the earthquake,
Yeah.
and then the fire came, but the Lord was not in the fire. But after the fire, like it's not always what you're expecting it to be. If you're
Yep.
looking for a big flashing neon sign,
Yep.
it's not always going. It might. I mean, you can't. You're not going to box God in, but
Yeah.
But a lot of times you have to still yourself.
Yeah.
Like let all of you like just settle and shut down, so that way you could hear. That way you can hear the still small voice, that prompt, that nudge
Yeah.
that you need, and it's difficult for a lot of personalities to do.
Yeah.
I mean, me included. Like I like to control things, run around, like do all the things, but if you're going to be intentional about going like finding the presence of God and like you have to put yourself in a spot to listen to him, and sometimes that means settling down and shutting up.
Yeah. That's very true. Yeah.
Places. So the big one would probably the big one for me, and I would love to have seen. Like, so the temple, excuse me, the temple is done. Like they finally got it finished. Like Solomon's there, all the things, like they're getting ready to do the big awesome dedication and all the things. They get the ark moved up to it. And so we're picking up 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 10 through 13. When the priests withdrew from the holy place, the cloud filled the temple of the Lord, and the priests could not perform their service because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled his temple. Then Solomon said, "The Lord has said that he would dwell in a dark cloud. I have indeed built a magnificent temple for you, a place for you to dwell forever." Like that would have been a cool thing to see, like the cloud of the glory of the Lord moving into Jerusalem and then settling down
Yeah.
into the temple.
That's insane.
That would have been awesome to see.
Yeah.
And then, fun fact, you should read Solomon's dedication prayer for the temple. It would be
Yeah.
something everybody should look at, and it might change your perspective on some Old Testament teachings where people thought it was a very exclusionary. He had very lofty goals and ideas for how everybody would come. Just a reminder that God loves and welcomes everyone.
Yep.
Always a good reminder. And fun fact, in Ezekiel, he actually has a vision of the glory of the Lord leaving the temple and going to be with his people in exile. So you can check that out as well.
Yeah, that's cool. When I also think of places where people experienced God, my brain kind of automatically goes to quite a few different stories throughout the Old Testament where people had some kind of interaction with God and then they left something behind to help them remember that place.
Yes.
So there are a lot of different examples that we can pull from for that, but there are like there are altars that they would build throughout the wilderness, the Israelites, as they journeyed on. There's also like before they were even like wandering around in the
Yes.
wilderness, there were folks who had an interaction and set up some form of an altar while they were traveling through some place. Like
Jacob did it. Abraham did it.
there are a bunch of examples to pull from, but that one in particular, if you're all right, we can pass it Brian Hughes's way, and he's going to continue to
Yes.
talk about those altars.
I want you to imagine this with me now. They go, all the people have crossed over. And remember now, the river's a mile wide from bank to bank. Everybody's on the other side. They're in the promised land now. Many of us would say, hey, you get to where God sends you, no looking back, right? We've even, done some teaching at times where we're not supposed to like forget your past and all that stuff. That's about sin. That's about the stuff that holds you back and brings you down. But now God says, look, you're not done with this river yet. Here's what I want you to do. Those priests are still back there. Somehow they know they're not supposed to leave yet. And God says to Joshua, pick 12 guys, one from every tribe. In other words, a representative of all the people. And I want you to send them back into the river. If it's a mile wide and the priests are standing in the middle of the river, they have to go halfway back, which is half a mile. No big deal. River's still parted. Danger's still there, but God's proven he can handle it. So they go back to the middle of the river and they grab a stone, one stone apiece. And these rocks that I'm putting down right now, they're kind of cute. No big deal. I'm setting them up two at a time. But we're told that the guys that go back to the middle of the river to grab a stone, they have this, they put it on their shoulder. It's a huge rock. It's probably this big. Now they got to hump it a half a mile all the way back. And when they get to the other side, Joshua says, I want you to set them up and kind of build a monument, if you will. In the place that you're going to stay tonight is what God tells them, which means the place where they're going to stay tonight is the promised land. Now they're home. They go back and they get these stones and they set them up in this monument. And the reason that God tells them to do that is because life goes on. That's true for you and me too. We tend to just move past the thing, we celebrate it for a minute, and then we just move on with the rest of our lives. But this monument was established so that as time passes and life goes on, and then we come to another obstacle, we can come back to this memorial, this marker, and remember what God did so that we can trust him for what he will still do. You want a sign in your life? Don't ask for a new one. You've already got one. You've already got one from your past. You just got to remember that one. Look, I don't know the specifics of your story, but I promise you, you have one. There are moments in your life that you could remember where God has proved his love for you. He's proved his care for you, his provision for you. Maybe he even did a miracle for you. In fact, I can bet you that he has. The problem for many of us is that we came through the river on dry ground, a real miracle, and we never set up a marker. We just moved on. But the marker is the sign, not just for the past, but also for our future, so that the next time you face danger or trouble or a challenge or a struggle or an impossibility, you can say, following Yeshua requires a step, not a sign, because my past is the sign that God is with me and that God is for me. I don't know where God is taking you in your life, but you can believe that it will involve danger and it's going to involve some obstacles. And moving forward with faith, trusting God with faith, requires you to take a step in that direction towards the water. So look back. Name some moments in your life from your past where God has already delivered you. Write them down. Mark them, and let that be your sign that God is not done with you yet, that great things are still coming for your life. You can trust God. You can trust him that if he leads you into the dangerous water, he's going to part it for you. But it requires a step from you, not a sign in front of you.
I love that. Look back and name some of the moments where God delivered you. And, that is something that is very helpful, especially whenever you're starting to doubt that there is any kind of direction or whether or not God does have a plan for you, because he's gotten you to the point of where you are.
Mm.
And he doesn't just drop you off in a spot and just say, well, you're on your own now, kid. Like,
Yeah.
he has a plan for you.
I'm so glad he doesn't do that. It stressed me out.
No, big time. And so that's been very helpful for me, especially in times where I felt like that, or life hasn't gone out exactly the way that I wanted it to, or anything else. Like, I look back and name some of the times where God delivered me. And one of the first times that I can really clearly remember that was back in 2014, whenever I came here to this church, and I was sitting in like the back left corner of the big room, and I really felt his presence for the first time. And so from time to time, I'll go there and I'll pray, and I'll remember like some of the songs that were playing then. Or whenever I first got saved and right before I got baptized, we had like an Easter event here at this campus, and there was a series of games outside, and I won this little necklace with this little Jesus fish on there. And it just reminds me of that time of where life was really in a bad spot, but Jesus saved me, and how no matter what, like, I'm one of his fish that he caught. And so and then you just start working forward from there. Okay, I saw God there. Then what happened? Okay, well, then this happened. And you just look back. And that's one of the things that I find so compelling about some of the things in the scripture, especially the Old Testament, where someone would have an encounter with God, and then they would build something that would last, some sort of reminder.
Yeah.
And then they would say, and they would tell their kids about it and like pass it along, right there at the banks of the Jordan River. That's where God brought us over the river there. Go there and look at it and remember that God was there. Or when Jacob wrestled or saw the ladder and all the dreams and all of that stuff, and then he built a thing there.
Yeah.
And said, so that way he would remember and he could tell his kids, listen, that is when God did X, Y, and Z for me.
Yeah.
And he will do those same things for you.
Man.
So
That's so
I
cool.
love that reminder out of Hughes's message there.
I think I do like a version of that. It's not fully creating a memory in a place, but I love journaling prayers for that reason, because at some point I can go back when I'm discouraged, or sometimes I'm not even discouraged or frustrated. Sometimes I just think it's fun to go back and read through it, and then I end up coming across things that I didn't even realize had been answered since the last time I wrote them down.
Yes.
Because I just forget to revisit it. So like going back and revisiting and then stopping when I have something and chewing on it for a little bit, and then journaling that. Like even that that action could, and it's not, I say journaling, but I have two kind of distinct spots in my notebook that I use every day where I do journaling, and then I do prayer journaling. So it's like I just write out a conversation with God. But it helps me remember the ways that he's moved in my life before, and in a way that is very personal, because it's my own perspective. I get to read back in real time.
Yes. No, and like that's what's called developing a spiritual memory.
Yeah.
Like things that you can go back to. I also have, whenever I got ordained, I was given like this keepsake box, and I have cards and notes that are in it. So that way I can look, like it can sometimes, I mean, anybody that's in ministry has times where they're like, does this even matter?
It's awesome, but it is rough sometimes.
No, sometimes it's easy to feel like you're just beating your head against a wall. I mean, that's not unique to this vocation.
Any form of leadership, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you need reminders of why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. And so whenever I go to that box, thank you so much for what you did and the way that you showed up here. And it's just like, wow, God used me to make a difference in that person's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
That's really
those are
cool.
the things that it sits in my sitting room. It's right on Madeline's piano. Like
Yeah.
it's right there. No, go ahead.
I'm just curious, like another example of like a place that you could have experienced God. Did you get baptized at like with PCC?
Yes.
Did you get baptized at the river?
Yes.
Is that like when you revisited?
Before we went to Westview, before we moved to Westview on the James, and I've not been back to where we used to be because I think it's all private now.
Well, if you had gotten baptized specifically at Westview on the James, where we go there annually, we have other baptisms and they're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But the one in September is always at the river.
Yes.
If you revisited it for our annual baptism, do you think it would put you back in that
I think
space?
absolutely.
Because it's a physical.
Yes.
I wonder. I'd be curious if there's other people who have gotten baptized there, and every year they go back, they get to revisit that moment.
Yes.
I also don't get to go back to the place where I got baptized. I also was very young, so I was old enough to know what I was doing, young
Yes.
enough to forget the details of where I was really. So it doesn't hold a strong memory for me, but I think it'd be really cool if it did.
Yes.
Like, that's awesome.
Like to go back and just be like, this is where.
Yeah.
Like I professed my faith in God and went public with my profession of faith in Jesus.
Yeah.
Like that'd be
sick.
very cool. So we wanted to kind of look at what we do to try to engage the presence of God. One of the things
Fun.
there's I put 3 bullets here for me.
Mhm.
One of the things that really helps me to feel close to God is just being extremely vulnerable and raw in my prayers to him. You know, whenever I first started praying to God, I felt like I had to like put on airs like to talk to him and just pretend that everything was okay. And there was I don't remember who told me this. It might have been Brian, it might have been Beth, or it may have been someone completely different. But they were talking about prayer and they were reflecting on their own prayer life, and they said it just felt so stupid to just talk to God and pretend that everything was okay. Because if this is the God of the universe who knows every single thing about me, he knows I'm lying.
Yeah.
And I'm not being real.
Yep.
And I don't know, that just blew my mind and completely shifted the way he's like, he's God, he's big enough, he can handle your feelings.
It's true.
And so that night I was just like, God, all of this sucks. Like, I don't like nothing that's going, like, and I ranted like out loud in the car. I remember it was in the car in the driveway of the house. Like I just let loose, and it was one of the most freeing
Nice.
like things, and like I just felt him there with me.
Yeah.
And it completely changed the way that I began talking to God in my prayer life. And so just being vulnerable with God, not holding anything back, like just letting him know how you feel. Like Jesus commands us and invites us to cast all of our anxieties and worries onto him because he cares for us. And so if we go to him with anything less than full authenticity with what is happening, you're doing a disservice to him and yourself. So that's one way that I really engage and feel the presence of God, is whenever I'm just being completely raw and honest with him. The other thing I try to do is just be intentional in my, like, I have to have a plan. Like that's just the way that I am wired. If I just say I'm going to do something, I will not do it.
Yeah.
I have to.
Me too.
I know me. I've done it too many times.
We're
Like,
works in progress.
yes. Like if I just announce
Yep.
like on a whim without having any structure in place to keep me focused,
Yeah.
I am not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I have to have so I know every day before I get out of bed, I have to talk to God. I have my regular Bible reading
Mm-hmm.
time. I have my regular quiet time in the car where there's no music. I'm not even talking. Like
Mm-hmm.
I will say a short prayer. I've said it before. I present myself now to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Father of Jesus, the great I am, as an empty vessel for your Holy Spirit. I come to hear you speak. And I just shut up and ride in silence and just give. And if I feel my brain start to wander, I say it again just to keep me focused. So that way I can hear him and just try to put myself in a position to be grown by him. And then, like I mentioned before, if I start to go sideways or things are like aren't going well for me, I try to just be reflective and say, God, like search me out, find any fault in me and let me know so that way I can repent or turn away or seek forgiveness or anything that I need to do so that way there's no obstacles between him and me.
Yeah.
Whether intentional obstacles that I put there or just unintentional ones
Yeah.
that I didn't know that I made a mistake. And that's also very helpful for me, especially whenever I'm dealing with anxiety or depression.
Yeah.
Like those are things that I find to be very helpful.
That's good stuff.
So where do you go?
So I really enjoy, I said before, worship music, but there's particular songs that I know will put me into a space where I am more in tune with God's presence because my soul just needs something about those lyrics. And they're usually not even songs that are focused on, you know how there's worship songs that are, God, thank you for all the things that you're doing for me.
Yes.
Versus there's worship songs that are like, hey, God, you're just great. Like outside
Yes.
of what you do for me, you're just great. It's usually the second one. It's the ones where you're shifting your focus to singing to God instead of singing about God. Those are the ones that switch flips. And I'm like,
Indescribable does that for me.
really?
Yes.
I mean, that's a tried and true,
Yeah.
like that's a bop right there. I think for me, like one of the first ones that I could think of off the top of my head is Great Are You, Lord.
Yes.
Just the sitting with his words that like express his trait. Also, there's his traits, multiple traits.
Yeah.
There's also some really good like solid hymns that will just like light me up and like get me excited with the lyrics. So sometimes I'll revisit. There's one particular artist that I am loving right now, and her name is Jess Ray, and she has some good like hymns kind of interwoven into her albums, and she also has some original music. So music is really important to me. I talked about like journaling my prayers beforehand. I don't think that I really necessarily experience God's presence in journaling my prayers. It's a good way for me to stay on track.
Yes.
But usually I need to take the distractions away and just be able to sit and focus and close my eyes and meditate and dwell on who he is. And I have a picture in my mind that I'll like talk myself through when I feel disconnected from God. And it's the picture is just me like being very like hunched down and inward focused and in on myself and beating myself up, kind of like I'm bent in on myself. And when I might have already talked about this on the podcast, by the way, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. Have you seen Inside Out 2?
No, not that one. I
Okay,
haven't seen it yet.
so there's a spot in Inside Out 2 where there's like this thing that they call the sense of self,
Okay.
and it's a brightly glowing string that like is in her mind space, Riley's mind space, and they kind of like pluck it, and it like is like bright and glowing, and like it's a strong like it's not a string, it's like a rope. It's thick.
Okay.
So anyways, it's this glowing thick string that just goes straight up, and it's her sense of self. And so when I'm bent in on myself and I'm trying to adjust that, I picture like super Saiyan mode and like and it's that thing is like pulling my chest up and my shoulders back and my head up and out. And that's
No, I love
that's
it.
a weird way to describe it, but I picture that while I sit and dwell, and that helps me connect to it's always being offered to me. It's always there. It just puts me in the headspace to receive that blessing that is spending time with God's presence.
Yes.
And then also the last thing, I love praying out loud with my husband, like that. There's something, I guess not even just him, praying out loud one-on-one with someone, or like in a very small. We don't stop and do that very often. We'll stop and have one person pray for the group, but we don't that often really stop and slow down enough to pray as a group and like all take our turns.
Yes.
And there's something about like the intimacy of that moment with people that you trust and you feel very close to, that also I will often experience God's presence very strongly in those situations while praying. Yeah.
No, and there's something to that I want to harp on just for a second. Like there's something, like if you and I were to have a conversation, like just in passing in the hallway, like we just stopped and we were catching up, and I could tell that something was up with you, and I just said, like, dude, what's up? And you told me something, and you was like, can you be praying about that? And I would just say, yep, and then just roll out. There's something different if I just said, let's go to God right now, and
Yep.
just said, we just and we just went.
Yep.
Like there's something there that I think a lot of people miss out on, because you are 100% right. There's something about like two people praying like that, where you really do feel like not just close to the person that you're praying with and them to you, but there's something there where you really do feel God in that moment. And I think we rob ourselves of that because, and I get it, it can be weird at first to just stop and pray with someone like that.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you now, like,
it's not as weird as you think.
It's not as weird as you think.
It's usually very meaningful, because if the other
Yes.
person is initiating prayer, they want prayer.
Yes.
Like if they're asking for it, they want it. Like they're not going to be weirded out by it.
No.
And the Bible also promises that when 2 or 3 or more are gathered and they're focused on Jesus, his presence is going to be there with them.
Yes.
Like we're promised that.
No, I learned that. I trained under before I had my first assignment as a pastor. Like I went out there to that place and I shadowed with this person, and I watched him do that. Like whenever I was first out there, and it had such an impact on me, because someone would say, would you be praying for that? And he just said, let's go to the Lord right now, and started doing it. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's I think more people should do it.
Yeah.
I think they're really missing out. So what do we do with all this? What type of do we have?
I would say if you are intentionally deciding to pursue the presence of God, to hold on to the fact that it's going to happen and God is going to show up in your life in big ways. And oftentimes the ways that God shows up in our life when we're really truly like pursuing his presence, and we're experimenting with new ways of how does it work best for us, and how can we put ourselves in this headspace where we can just so focus in on spending time with him. He matches that energy, and he will usually say, okay, well then are you going to leave your comfort zone?
Yes.
So I would be prepared. I would pray, but I would be prepared that you're gonna enjoy it, but you're also going to be prompted to move out of your comfort zone. So maybe start looking at things that you could try out that are new for you, like stopping and praying with someone one-on-one when they ask for a
Yes.
prayer, instead of just saying, okay, sure, I'll do it, and then doing it by yourself when you don't have to be nervous about it. Like, pray and engage with his presence, but be prepared to step out of your comfort zone.
No, I think that is perfect. Like,
Yeah.
and just act on whatever prompt that small still whisper
Yeah.
might hit you with.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great spot to land the plane.
Absolutely.
All right, so like, share, subscribe, and let us know what you're thinking about our episodes. And if you do, we will send you a mug. You can find us in our Facebook group. It is really taken off
It
in there.
is.
It's fantastic.
It's awesome.
We're loving all the community engagement. You can drop questions in there and let us know what you think about specific episodes or whatever one you're watching, and we will respond in there. And we'll see you back here for another episode of the After Chat next week.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for the After Chat. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To be the first to hear our next episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and get notifications for new content. You can also follow us on social media on Instagram at PCC Wired and Facebook at Passion Community Church. For additional resources and links, check out the description. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on The After Chat.